now we have the Kenya Kwanza government. How come we have not seen heads rolling? I've had my friend, my president, His Excellency, talk about corruption. I've had the head of public service talk about corruption. How come we are not seeing any heads rolling? And if they're rolling, they are rolling at the low end. When Lee Kuan Yew took over, he said, I will not go for these small fellows who are stealing pencils, because they steal pencils and ball pens. You know, and maybe so they eat one man does, they eat three. You know, I will go for the big guys who are stealing big money. I will deal with them. I will jail them. I will put them on the firing squad. But don't go for small people and say, I'm fighting corruption. What corruption are you fighting? You know, I'm sorry, parties in this country are like inner clothes. So you tell me, how can you have parties every 5 years you have a new vehicle? The trajectory this country has taken is not for any growth, it's for destruction. In another, I can tell you, in another 10, 15 years to come, we shall have no country. We'll have nothing. How can you be a Singapore when you elect corrupt fellows, when you elect people who are incompetent, when you elect people of bad history? How can you be a Singapore when you elect people who are just going to raid public coffers? How can you be a Singapore, for heaven's sake? You can never be the president if you're corrupt. Never in Singapore. You cannot make it, even to the shortlist. You can't. But in this country, who makes it to the shortlist in the party?
Hello there and welcome to our political conversation. Today we're taking a look at Infotruck's County Truck Performance Index for governors. We have the top 25 governors list today and we're going to discuss about it with Philip Kisia, former Nairobi town clerk and leadership and governance expert. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Jadel. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Tunachapa kazi tu.
Good.
Everyone is working with this economy.
This is a working nation.
This is a working nation and this is how we should be. Everyone on their toes.
Yeah.
What do you think about this list? You know, I'm looking at the top 25 governors and that is our conversation for today, starting with George Natembeya and Gladys Wanga tying at number 1. We have Simon Kachapin, Simba Arati, Irungu Kangata, Jeremiah Lomurkai and Mutula Kilonzo there. At number 8 we have Elgeyo Marakwet, Wesley Rotich, Kawera Mongaza and Julius Malombe. These are the list of the top performing governors in this country. George Natembeya ranked at 70%. None of these governors have been ranked by their constituents at more than 70%. No one has a sharp A. All of them have 70% is an A minus, or is still an A.
It depends on where you're sitting. But from where I'm sitting, it's a plain B.
A plain B. Yeah. You can't get a 70%.
It's a plain B.
When you look at this list, Philip, what surprises you? Is there anything that comes to mind when you look at this list, top 25 governors in Kenya?
Well, I'm not surprised. Because if you look at the list of governors who are perceived to be doing well, there are certain things that come out in those particular counties. That one, there are no wrangles. The governor has a cordial working relationship with the county assembly and the residents that he or she is serving. Number 2, the governor has an agenda that is in tandem with the people. So the people appreciate what the governor is doing. Number 3, the governor is extremely effective in the way he or she is communicating his agenda and the programs and what he's doing. So the people seem to be aware that the governor is working. And that helps, because when you light a candle and cover it with a blanket, nobody sees the light.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nobody can see the light, but you look at the functions. Some of these governors here were not well ranked when it comes to county indexing, but they have been ranked pretty well when it comes to governor indexing. I had this conversation with Herman Manyora, but I'm yet to get this clarity of why are we ranked well as a county, but my governor is not ranked well as a person?
You see, I think that first of all is a perception a survey. And two things that you must appreciate. That one, that when you are being rated as an individual, just an individual, you are sitting for one examination. So the chances are that you can slip through and you can, overall come out as having performed. So I'm not saying that the survey doesn't reflect what is actually on the ground. I think it does reflect. So it is one exam that the governor sat for. It is that particular exam that you are being marked on. It's one exam. It's more holistic. But when you look at now the county, there are several papers that you're sitting for. From this particular survey, I think there are about 16 functions, 14 which are core functions, 2 which are auxiliary. Those are 16. So you're being weighted from 16 papers.
Okay.
But this particular one is just one straight paper, and it's about perception. How are people viewing you as a governor, as the person holding that office? Do they think, are they feeling you positively? Do they see you as somebody who's caring? Do they see you as somebody who really understands their needs? Are you in touch with them? Because you could be performing, but you're completely out of touch with the people. As I said, it's one paper I've sat for. And it's an issue of, you're not dealing with machines. You're dealing with human beings who are failing. Are they feeling you? So basically, are they happy with the person at the top who is providing leadership?
Would I be correct to say for governors, it's more of a popularity contest, and for this one is more about development?
No. Not at all, Jedial. Because, see, it's not about popularity here. If you're not performing, because I'm sure overall the respondents were being asked whether the governor is meeting expectations. Is he meeting expectations? The answer is either yes or no. Or some could have said to some extent. Yep. So it has some bearing on what the governor is doing. But most likely, the respondents were looking at whether this particular governor understands their needs, is responding to their needs, and he or she is actually close to the people. Is he communicating effectively? Is he there? Is he on the ground? Okay? So, this one you can't hide. So either you're on the ground, because if you're not on the ground, you're operating, for example, you are the governor of County X, and you're operating from Y. Already, there's a disconnect. People are not feeling you. Okay. It's about service. And service you cannot give in absentia. Because we know when you're dealing with human beings, you must be there.
Most of these governors
must feel you.
Are usually in Nairobi, not in the
if you're spending your time in Nairobi here.
And Mombasa.
If you're spending your time in Nairobi, going to State House to look for development and free tea and mandazi, of course, you'll be rated very poorly. Go to the ground, let the people feel you, meet the people, talk to the people, respond to their needs.
I want you to compare Natembeya, Gladys Wanga, how they performed in county indexing and for governors. And then you look at, they have performed pretty well for both. And then you look at Johnson Sakaja, who hasn't performed well for county indexing. And here is among top 25, actually number 23. Why is that coming, that one is doing well for both, and here Sakaja is doing well for the governor thing?
As I said, it's about perception and people feeling, because it's about service delivery. And you cannot deliver service in absentia. You need to be close to people. So if you look at the case of Natembeya and the case of Gladys Wanga, they have done the three things I've said very effectively. And they are there. People can feel them. Okay? And they're responding. And they're communicating. All right? And they're consulting. On the other side, you've talked about Johnson Sakaja. Johnson Sakaja is, in the capital county, He's born to be in the media all the time. And, people may feel him directly or indirectly. That is there. And any little small thing that he does, he's able to communicate. And you see, and that's why media, PR and communication become so critical in this
surveys.
Survey. If you have a blackout, you've been given a blackout, nobody knows what you're doing. The respondent is likely to respond in the negative. So Sakaja has the benefit of running a county that gives him exposure constantly. Now the king and queen are here, Sakaja is being seen. So for those who believe that he's working, of course,
they'll say
the guy is working. But now when you get deeper into the nuts and bolts, like asking the hard questions, education, how many classrooms have you built? How many kilometers of roads have you done? You now get into specifics.
The exam
That's where now
different.
you expose the performing governors and the non-performing governors.
Then I go to the other governor, Susan Kihika Nakura, who's talking about that too, who was ranked well when it comes to county indexing, but missing as a performing governor for herself. What does this show? Does this show, well, your communication is lacking? Is this the case? That we look at education, we look at what we're saying, we're doing something, but as a person, you're not in touch with us.
I just said there's a disconnect. That yes, the functions seem to be doing well. People seem to be appreciating what the county dealing with the functions that they are dealing with, and they can see some results. But when it comes to the person is not being felt, because you're dealing with human beings. You're not dealing with a machine. You need to communicate. You need to be close. You need to, you actually need to be on the ground. And then you talked about Madam Susan Kihika. I suspect the wrangles that he's having, the quarrels she's having with almost everybody, could be affecting the perception people have about him, because you're dealing with people, not with machines. All right. So and people are bound to respond negatively when your actions are a bit deviant from what they expect as a governor. Okay. And you see, that is what could be affecting some of these governors. That people are saying, listen, some work could be, maybe the CCs are working, so education, if the education is doing well, it is the CC who is performing. This governor is just a beneficiary of a good CC.
So people actually know that there are CCs.
Of course.
There's a function of this governor.
Of course, people know. People are not stupid. You may underestimate the intelligence of particularly Kenyans and the consumer. People are well informed, and they can tell you when a governor is just sleeping and spending most of his or her time in the capital county and not going on the ground. They can tell. They can smoke you out, and they smoke you out through a survey, and that is what has happened. They have been smoked out.
What are the implications, though, of this survey? Because you would say, hey, they have been smoked out. Some of them have been performing badly, and they are now 2 terms governor. Are there implications if a survey doesn't rank you as well as others?
Jadel, the politics of this country is very interesting. And sometimes even you find people who don't even qualify to be MCAs being elected as governors. In my own view, if they were to sit for a serious interview in a corporate arrangement, they will not be considered for a messengeral job. So you find there are many factors.
Our governors.
There are many factors
can't be messengers.
There are many factors that that get somebody elected. Of course, one is popularity, the theatrics involved, but most important in this country, what makes somebody elected into office in this country? One is your tribe. If you most likely come from one of the top 4 or 5, and the majority of those people in that particular geographical area come from your tribe, and you're the only one, you're most likely to get a substantial number of votes. Number two is a political party. What political party is supporting you? Most of these governors are there because of their political parties and their godfathers. But key again is how much you're willing to spend. You know, I don't want to talk about the source of that money, but how much are you spending that? So you can have somebody who's very competent, somebody can be very effective to occupy a political office. But if you don't have people to sponsor you, those cartels who will come back and say, you know, with us who put you in office, it's now time for us to recoup our investment. I mean, the chances of you being elected are slim in this country. Yeah. It's not like in America. In America, of course, people, I mean, it's about party ideology, and the party looks for the best. The party actually goes for the best candidate.
You can say
in Europe and in Americas, they don't go for mediocrity. They go for meritocracy. In Singapore, for example, you can never be the president if you're corrupt. Never in Singapore. You cannot make it, even to the short list. You can't. But in this country, who makes it to the short list in the party?
So,
I mean, do I need to explain to you?
I'm speechless, but because Kenya has actually been called one of Africa's Singapore in the next, I don't know, 10 to 20 years.
How can you be a Singapore? How can you be a Singapore when you elect corrupt fellows, when you elect people who are incompetent, when you elect people of bad history? How can you be a Singapore when you elect people who are just going to raid public coffers? How can you be a Singapore, for heaven's sake?
So
it's a pipe dream,
so
my friend.
We go back to this ranking and we ask ourselves whether there will be implication, because people are voting based on tribe, based on money, based on parties. Then we go to this list and ask ourselves, will there be any implication if a governor is just being bottom and he has all the necessities that Kenyans look for?
It's up to Kenyans to decide. If Kenyans have chosen that this is the way of life, that they don't care anymore, so long as they are bought during elections, because every 5 years people will just buy the vote. It's not because you are the best. You pay your party leader some money, and there you are. Then you have enough money to bribe the voters, and you have the office. So it is up to Kenyans to make a decision. Is this how we want to leave this country for the future generations? They must make a decision now. Okay? And I'm sorry if Jadel, if Kenyans don't make a decision, the trajectory this country has taken is not for any growth, is for destruction. I can tell you, in another 10, 15 years to come, we shall have no country. We'll have nothing.
Kenyans are not willing to change things, and therefore...
It is up to them. It is up to Kenyans to decide. They make a decision. You want to tell me that where, in some of these very civilized jurisdictions, and where people just go for the best. Malaysia, people go for the best. The parties go for the best. The parties fund the candidate. The voters fund the candidate. The voters look for money and give it to you and say, we want you. We want your services. But here what happens? The party goes for the most incompetent, for the most corrupt, for people who are useless. That's what happens in this country.
Even you look at Kenya, parties change every single election.
Yeah, because they're just vehicles. There's no ideology. I'm sorry, parties in this country are like inner clothes. So you tell me, how can you have parties every 5 years you have a new vehicle? Every 5 years you have a new vehicle.
New coalition.
Today you have giraffe, tomorrow you have elephant.
But can you really? How? Because I understand.
Let's be serious.
I understand from a presidential perspective, you need coalitions to win. Is this the case, that you need to have coalitions with different regions which have different parties for you to garner votes? And therefore,
there is no problem having coalitions. And don't mistake coalitions for being a negative an aspect of
Politics.
Politics. My problem is that those coalitions only serve the interest of a few people. The coalitions, why are they formed? They are not formed because they want to serve people. Those coalitions are formed to serve the interest of a few people. That is it. How can you explain, Jadel, a man who was about to be auctioned comes in as a governor? A man who was being auctioned is appointed as CS, and within 12 months, life has changed. This man who could not be considered, forget about government, because government sometimes, it's only during the Kibaki era that we had serious public service commission. Now there's nothing. It's nothing. A man who could not be considered for anything, who could not manage his affairs, most of them are men, who are total failures. As my friend Don Kipkori says now, some of them, even the cologne has changed, perfume has changed. Now they are putting on expensive everything. Yeah, life has changed. They are now, most of them are in Karen.
They are fighting for a
most
house.
of them are in Karen.
Yeah.
Some of them are fighting for houses.
Let's not go there. But
some of them, it's terrible.
so what should be done? Because we have this conversation about these governors that are always on the bottom, and they take 2 terms and they go home. Some of them face impeachment and then they're saved in Senate. Some of them who do not deserve to be impeached cannot handle their politics in the counties. What should be done to make governors work? Should we impeach them, or should we place a law which sets a bare minimum? If you're caught stealing, if you're selling your spouses abroad, then we have a bare minimum so that we can be able to keep the governors on toes.
The price of democracy is very interesting. Because they say, but I've been democratically elected by the people.
Yes.
That's it. They're the ones who gave me mandate. But this problem, this challenge we're facing as a people can only be sorted out by the people themselves. The day they learn to say that if you want to be a governor, this is the minimum, bare minimum. If you want to be president, this is the bare minimum. We shall not look at your tribe. We shall look at your history. We shall look at what you have done before and what you are capable of doing for the society, for the nation in the coming months, years to come.
Yeah.
But if the only motivation you have as a voter is voting in somebody from your tribe, I interact with Kenyans and I can tell you some of them are crying, saying, we didn't know about this, we don't know about this. You knew, but you decided to make the wrong decision. You decided to vote somebody based on your tribe, based on how much you are paid. These are the consequences. Let us make a decision as Kenyans and say, if we want to be a Singapore, what are some of the aspects the Singaporeans look at? Yeah? What is it? What do they look at?
You ask
Number
yourself.
one they look at is merit. Do you merit that position? Are you honest? Can you do the job? Are you pragmatic? Yeah? Because some of these guys are not pragmatic. Some of these guys don't care about this country. And that is why once they have gotten in, they go to sleep, and they know very well that in the next cycle of voting, the only thing they need to do is to give 500, depending on the seat you're going for, 1,000 or 2,000 if it's governor. They don't question your capability.
It was very interesting when I was listening to the CEO of Infotrack, and she was saying first term they perform to be elected into the second term. And when they do surveys of 2-term governors, at the end of their term, it seems like the past 5 years were not did not exist. What is the case with that?
You see, it is because, one, some of them, they are not motivated by servant leadership. They didn't get into the office to go and serve people. They got into office for other reasons that we all know as Kenyans. Okay? But if you look at a few of them who have performed exceedingly well, the governor of Makueni, former governor of Makueni, Professor Kivuza Kibwana, from the first day he got into office up to the last day, he was consistent. Why? Because he went in for one purpose, to serve the people. Governor Kibwana he came in and left the way he came in.
Yeah.
But some of these governors, even after 5 years, you wonder, if they are so brilliant, how come they were not able to live that sort of life pre-getting into office? How come? How come it's only that when they got into public office that they become clever? That all of a sudden they are very clever. They know how to make money. They don't know how to make money. They are not industrialists. They are not workers. They are thieves. They're just thieves. But if Kenyans have chosen to have leadership that is full of mediocrity, that is full of laziness, that is tribal, it is up to Kenyans. Let Kenyans decide. Kenyans must decide. Kenyans must say enough is enough to tribalism. Yeah, that if you get in as a governor or as a president, that we are the people who gave you the job. You know, I've seen these characters, most of them. Sometimes they get into office in a very humble manner, but immediately they are inside the office, they start behaving as if they are king. They forget that they are just employees. They have just been employed. They have just been employed. You see, in private sector, if you do some of the things that are done by these characters, you cannot even survive for 1 year. Because the owners, let me put in Gachagua's word, the shareholders, the shareholders will fire you. But here, now we have the Kenya Kwanza government. How come we have not seen heads rolling? I've had my friend, my president, His Excellency, talk about corruption. I've heard the head of public service talk about corruption. How come we are not seeing any heads rolling? And if they're rolling, they are rolling at the low end. When Lee Kuan Yew took over, he said, I will not go for these small fellows who are stealing pencils, because they steal pencils and ball pens. You know, and maybe so one man does, they eat three. You know, I will go for the big guys who are stealing big money. I will deal with them. I will jail them. I will put them on the firing squad. But don't go for small people and say, I'm fighting corruption. What corruption are you fighting? Is
there willingness? Because I've asked you about the people, I've asked you about whether we can do something with the law. Is there willingness, and what can the president really do to deal with this? We don't know who's at number 47. Maybe you've seen the full list. I haven't. But to deal with that person at the bottom whose county hasn't performed and who as a governor hasn't performed, what can the president do?
The president cannot do anything when it comes to governors, because these are independent, you know, they are small little kings.
Yes.
Although I had the president saying that in our situation here we have kings kingpins who mean nothing. Now we have the king who is something. You see, the person or the people who can deal with these characters, the governors, are the people who have elected them. Okay? Civil society can also come in strongly. I have lost hope in the institutions which have mandate to carry out some functions. What happened to EACC? What happened to DCI? What happened to the office of the Auditor General? You know,
public prosecutions.
You know, when Eddie Oko was Auditor General, we could see things. You know, even Uhuru himself felt hit because of the reports that were being generated. And Eddie Oko said, no, Mr. Your Excellency, I must go and this thing, I want to interrogate this thing. And the president, you can't interrogate. I said, why can't I interrogate? Now we need such people with courage. You're given an office. I've seen the controller of budgets make an attempt to raid onto governors and to raid onto public offices and to say things are not as rosy as we think. And we are just a broke country. We are broke everywhere, you know. And if we don't take care, you know, we'll be auctioned by the people who we borrowed money from, because they can auction you. And, you know, you've seen country economies which have totally collapsed.
Yes.
If you are not careful, Kenya is headed that direction. Yes.
So the people need to stand up. We need to stand up as a people and say, if my governor isn't doing something, lazima ende nyumbani. Lazima.
You see, in fact, you know, God rests his soul in eternal peace. My president, Emilio Mwai Kibaki. You were around. You're not a small boy.
Yes.
Okay,
but I was around.
But you are around.
Yes.
Did you hear Kibaki talking?
Yeah.
He was in State House. But once Kibaki gave you a job, he also gave you a contract. Okay? Said, okay, this is your contract. Sign. Have you agreed? Sign. To do this job, what do you need from me? This is, okay, may I sign here? Me, I'll provide. And you, are you going to deliver? Sign here. Let's talk after 1 year. Kibaki was not all over. That's not management. Management is the ability of the person at the top to provide leadership, to enable these people, to give them the necessary resources that they require, to monitor and evaluate. Okay? But if, as a manager, you want to do the job, then why have these people in the first place? Why have them?
Okay. Talked for almost 30 minutes.
Kenyans must decide the direction this country should take.
When you look at this list, from George Natembea, number 1, to number 23, tying Jonathan B., Johnson Sakaja, Wilberforce Otichilo, Honorable Fernandez. Actually, number 1 is also Gladys Wanga. Is there someone here you say, this person shouldn't be on this list? So let me put you in a difficult position. Is there someone here you'd say, Infotrakapa, maybe people did not give you the right analysis?
You know, for me to make that conclusion, I will need to see the basis. You know, I need to go deeper and say, okay, this is what the people are looking at. But the people cannot be wrong. Because, you know, when you get into leadership, there are certain expectations by the people. And so long as you are meeting those expectations, you are doing the job. Because the contract is between you, who is governing, and those who are being governed.
Then let me...
Those who are being governed will say, we want you to do 1, 2, 3, 4. If you are doing 1, 2, 3, 4, who am I to say that the
person is not supposed to be there? No. But let me put you on another. So, let me ask you another question.
You know, you need a bit of more detail, but I'm sure the respondents, who are the voters, are happy with what these particular people are doing. For example, I know Governor Natembea, probably because you know, I have interest in Trans Nzoia. I can tell you, George Natembea is doing a fantastic job in Trans Nzoia. I'm not a resident of Homa Bay, but I have friends who come from Homa Bay, and I can tell you, Gladys Wanga is doing a superb job. You know, on the list, people like Anyang Nyong doing a fairly good job. Nasir in Mombasa, I was there recently. I think he is doing a fairly good job. Mudhomi Njuki, I think because the second term governor and he understands, he probably is doing a good job. Barire has worked in public service. I'm sure doing. Julius Malombe is a good administrator. So really, Mutula has been in public service for some time. At least it's, you know, I'm not, you know. So I would say that this Irungu Kangata is my friend. Before he went in, I warned him. I'm happy that the people think he's doing a good job. Irungu, keep it up. So, well, I think it's a fair representation.
Then let me ask you about the people who are missing. James Rengo, Wamatangi. Is there someone that comes to mind and you're thinking, hey, why isn't he here?
Wamatangi is a friend of mine for many years. Yeah, he's my good friend. He can look for me. He needs to focus on the job that took him there. There are too many wrangles within the county assembly. This could be derailing his agenda. He needs to find a formula of working with the county assembly. He needs to address the contract that he signed with the people of Kiambu. So I think lack of focus can really derail any person in leadership. You see, I'm happy. Can see Ain my guru here. Okay, Mutahi, Kega, despite a few noises here and there about shares of this country and so on forth. I'm not surprised Ken Lusaka is on the list. So I think it's a fair representation of what is actually happening on the ground. Arati was my councillor. Hello. Silva is my councillor. So.
Let's wind up. But before I wind up, I usually tell people to talk to people. But maybe this time don't give them a message. What is your warning to the bottom that haven't been put on this list? Because if you're not among 25, you're probably at 47, as you usually say. What is your warning to them?
Now, anybody who's not in the top 25 is most likely at the bottom.
Yes.
Count yourself to be at the bottom. If you're not in the top 25, count yourself to be at the bottom. This is a warning shot. So, being a warning shot, put your house in order and start working. Because if you don't, this is now the third cycle of devolution. We are getting into the fourth cycle. The consumer, or rather the voter, your customer, is getting more information, is getting more educated. And the more information these people get about how counties should be managed, the more expectations or high expectations will be coming from the voter. And with high expectations, there'll be more pressure on the governors to perform. So I see by the time we get to the fourth, maybe these other factors being removed. If you have now serious parties that don't look at you because you are corrupt, you can steal and take money to the party, being given a chance to provide leadership. I see the counties as the frontiers of change. The real change in Kenya will come from the counties.
So governors, put your houses in order. Ama utaenda nyumbani. You've said that.
Oh yes.
Kenyans will take you.
Kenyans will throw you out.
Thank you for tuning in. It is Governor's Performance Rating of the Year 2023 by InfoTrack's County Track. What do you think about this list? This list is available on the social media platforms. You can go and check InfoTrack on Twitter. But also tell me about your governor. Is he doing his job? Is she doing what she's supposed to do? And what are you planning to do about it if they continue doing what they are doing wrongly to the poorest of the poor? If you haven't seen that video on TikTok, probably should see. But until we do talk again, talk to your governors, tell me what they have said, and also leave a comment down below about your country. This has been Philip Kisia, former Nairobi Town Clerk, leadership and governance expert. If you're also a governor there and you need someone to talk to, kusaidia kidogo kuweko hii list, amekupea warning, talk to Philip Kisia. Thank you for tuning in. Have yourself a lovely rest of your day.